The sweet sting of betrayal burned my throat as I watched Lisa, my wife, toast another man, draped in diamonds I once paid for. In that hollow moment, rage simmered under my skin, and I wondered if she could feel me grinding my teeth from 100 miles away. I'm Daniel Webster, 46 years young, or old depends who you ask. Growing up in a tiny Pennsylvania town, I learned early that people either build or break. My father worked graveyard shifts at the paper mill to keep us clothed and stubbornly upright, while my mother wrote careful lists for everything: groceries, chores, grudges. Structure kept our unpredictable world spinning. That seeped into me like rainwater finding cracks in the foundation. I learned to plan, control, and calculate, never give chaos a foothold. At college, computers became my sanctuary. Circuits made sense, unlike the late-night shouting drifting through my childhood bedroom. Keyboard clicks settled my mind. By the time Lisa crossed into my world, all fiery curls and gold eyes, I believed I'd finally earned predictability, maybe even joy. She was everything I wasn't: impulsive, magnetic, hell-bent on raining excitement from every weekend. You think too much, she used to tease, curling her legs around mine after long days spent on opposite clusters of the world. Let me shake the dust off you. I'd laugh because back then it felt like rescue, not warning. Our early marriage burned fast road trips, city lights, breathless promises whispered in cheap motel sheets. I remember the first apartment, our whole life jammed between thrift store sofas and cheap wine. She'd plop on my lap after work, talking dreams and schemes while I paid bills on my old Sheba. To her, money was for living. To me, it meant security, something she seemed to trust would just appear. I didn't realize she'd never learn to worry about going without. After our wedding, I put every spare cent into safe investments here, 400 wunks, index funds that quietly fattened over years. The day we bought our house, Lisa twirled beneath the kitchen skylight, sparkling with possibility. We did it, Mr. Planner to Z. She'd wink, but soon she filled the rooms with designer shoes, spa bags, party dresses. Tiny notes would pop up on my Visa Bloomingdale's flights to Vegas, urgent salon visits. She chalked it up to treating herself, self-care after grueling weeks. Love, I told myself. She deserves this. All the while I covered overdrafts, expecting things would balance out. How naive. I started noticing changes maybe 4 years ago. Quiet panic, the kind that sits heavy on your ribs. Worker retreats out west, punctuated by vague photos of mysterious travel companions. She took phone calls in locked bathrooms, then clung extra tight to me in bed afterward. My stomach turned every time her phone flashed, her laughter changed, full of secrets now. They're just friends, she'd say, but even her hugs felt staged, like an actor reading from a script. That's when I started protecting myself, devoting evenings to moving funds into accounts she never knew about. I hired Mike Tolley, old college buddy, now forensic number hunter, to double-check our taxes. Not paranoia, I told myself. Just preparedness. I documented everything: bank statements, text screenshots she sent by accident, receipts I found buried in coat pockets. I wanted to believe I was overreacting. But at night, lying next to Lisa, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder if ignorance ever truly protected anyone. My life became an exercise in pretending normalcy. Weekend brunches where Lisa scrolled her phone, barely tasting mimosas. Dinners with her colleagues, where she sparkled for everyone but me. I felt myself shrinking, ghosting around my own house. You look tired, babe, she'd say, like I was an inconvenience. I'd smile and nod, rehearsing the lines of a marriage that had become more performance than partnership. The truth. I missed a woman I married to her wild ideas, her defiant laughter, but nostalgia is a liar. I measured love by the numbers stacked in our account, the house neat and secure, decades stretching in front of us. She measured it by excitement, attention, the next glittering thrill. The more I held on, the further away she drifted, until all that was left between us was empty space and a ticking clock. Sometimes late at night, I'd look in the mirror and ask, who are you protecting, Daniel, her, or you yourself? I already knew the answer. I was guarding the only thing I had left, the pieces of a life I wasn't sure ever belonged to me in the first place. The message came in at 7:18 p.m. on a stormy Thursday. Sharp ping, screen flicker, her name bubbling up over the quiet hum of the dishwasher. I almost didn't check it. God, I wish I hadn't. A video file sat in her text chain, labeled with a single heart emoji. No caption. Just curiosity and dread crawling side by side through my chest. I tapped play without thinking, thumb trembling so slightly I could barely steady the phone. Lisa's face, glossy and styled, filled the frame. She looked animated, cheeks flushed in a way I hadn't seen in years, draped in a silk robe that was definitely not from our closet. In the backdrop, a glittering suite, champagne tower, windows flung open to city lights 400 miles from here. Her voice was quicksilver cold, smooth, rehearsed. Hey, Daniel. She smiled, full and smile, the kind she reserved for strangers on Instagram. I know you hate drama, but better to rip off the band-aid, right? I froze. The TV droned in the background, auditioning for an audience that didn't exist. She twirled a diamond bracelet, huge, gaudy, not the kind we could afford. Mark says hi, she smirked, glancing off screen. A man's laugh, deep and lazy, wormed its way through the speakers. I gripped the phone tighter, knuckles draining white. I'm moving on, she said, like a weather report. And I'm taking what's fair. I emptied the Fidelity account this morning. It was in both our names, remember? Her voice caught, just for a second, a sliver of guilt, maybe, or just a hiccup in her performance. You'll be fine. You always are. True survivors, right? Her lips twitched. Don't bother calling. I need space. You need a new start. The video ended. Black, silent like a punch in the sternum. A roaring, hissing fog built behind my eyes, a tidal wave ready to crash through the kitchen. My legs went numb. I heard my own breath ragged, animal. I wanted to scream, to claw the drywall, to find her and what? Beg? Rage? I did nothing. I just stared at the phone, replaying the words like a sick mantra. Mark says hi. I'm taking what's fair. I bolted upstairs, laptop under my arm, fingers moving on autopilot, bank logins, statement downloads, double-checking every last digit. I tried to find a mistake, some technicality, a saving throw. But there it was, $212,000 gone before noon, transferred in 3 neat wires, one to Las Vegas, one to San Diego, one marked MLT Holdings. I went cold. When the panic faded, rage settled in. I pictured Lisa huddled with Mark, tall, tanned, always over-smiling at office parties, mocking me, clinking glasses over my future. Careful, Daniel, he's too smart to catch. I imagined him whispering while she giggled, thinking she pulled all the strings. For odd, I thought I was weak, slow, the harmless planner, always content at the edges of their flame. They didn't know I'd seen this coming. I dialed Mike Tolley before the adrenaline faded. Tell me you're at your desk, I barked the second he picked up. Whoa, Daniel, everything okay? I almost laughed a sharp, bitter snort. Lisa drained our retirement, all of it. She's with someone, they're gloating, and she thinks she's covered her tracks. Mike whistled low. Send me everything. Now, you got copies? I have copies of everything. Tax files, signatures, emails. Hell, I've got her digital footprints from 3 different devices. My voice shook. I just didn't think. She's never been this direct. She left a video. Mike, she's celebrating. He was silent for a beat. That means she thinks it's over. She thinks you're too devastated to fight back. Yeah, I sighed, voice gone flat. But the joke's on her. She never paid attention when I talked money. She just spent and dreamed and left me to sweep the floors when the party ended. Well, now it's ending for her. Mike gave me instructions. Step by step, freeze the joint accounts, call the banks, document every withdrawal. My pulse steadied as I moved through the motions, icy focus coiling in my gut. Lisa could have the diamonds, the champagne, the city lights. What she didn't see coming was how easy I could lock her out, how thorough I'd been while she was off chasing new thrills. It hurt like fire. Every keystroke felt like stitching up my own open wound. I remembered our wedding night in that cheap hotel above Walnut Street, her laughing, dancing in her frayed dress, pouring drugstore Prosecco into plastic cups. How could she turn into this, someone who'd look me in the eye and hollow out everything we built? I sat there in the dark, letting the pain sharpen into resolve. You think you know me, Lisa, I whispered, foreign pressed to my forehead, but you never saw the parts of me built for survival. You just lit the match. Now watch what I do with the fire. I was washing a glass when I heard the door slam, a sound so raw it rattled the frame, thunder rolling after a week of heavy, silent rain. I turned. There she was. Lisa. Hair wild, eyes glassy, with something like panic and something like fury, gripping that cheap department store tote bag, breath staccato. She pointed at me, fingers shaking. What the hell did you do, Daniel? Her voice cracked along the edges, anger mixed with something far more fragile. I put the glass down, wiped my hands with careful precision so she could see I wasn't nervous. I was done shaking for her. I called the bank, I said, soft but sharp enough to draw blood. I reported the transfers. I froze every account you could touch, joint, credit, safe deposit box at First National. I called your HR about the company card to seem fair. Her cheeks blazed, jaw working, that signature laugh threatening to burst out but stalling halfway. You had no right. She was near tears now, mascara smudged, shoulders heaving under the weight of a life unraveling. I let years of quiet resentment bubble up, my voice trembling with the force of it. No right, you emptied our future and left me a video like you were reading grocery prices. I've been your silent cleanup crew since the first work trip you took to Palm Springs. You never thought you'd get caught too busy planning your little getaway with Mark the Snake. She stepped forward, hand balled into a fist. I deserve half. Daniel, you think you're so clever, what? You thought you could just lock me out and walk away free. You think judges pick sides based on who cries first. I had to bite down hard not to shout. The fury throbbed in my temples, mixing with fear and heartbreak until it was all I could feel. I spat the words out. You didn't just leave me, Lisa. You stole from me. You forged my signature on withdrawal documents. I found the digital logs. The attorneys have them now. You made it easy, laughing with your Mark says hi like you were 2 teenagers. Guess what? You left a digital confession, sweetheart. She went still as a deer in headlights. Gone was the woman with the champagne and diamonds. In her place stood the girl from 20 years ago, frightened, desperate, doing the math in her head and realizing the answer was disaster. I needed that money, she screamed, sobbed, pleaded, her words tripping over one another. Mark said he'd help. He said he knew about investments. He said... She broke off, hating herself for letting his name slip in a plea. For a moment, silence pressed in from all sides. Rain battered the window. I remembered our old life, a night on the roof with take-out boxes, Lisa whispering wild dreams about Paris. I remembered when I could still trust her heart in the dark. But all that was ash now, and I let it burn out of me. You needed it, or he did, because your soulmate is about to get a subpoena. My accountant traced every cent. You two didn't even try to cover your tracks. 72,000 to a shell company in Nevada, another 16 to some boutique travel agency. You think wire fraud is something judges wipe away? She stared at me then, pure panic flooding her face, finally understanding the finality of what I'd done. If you love me, she started, choking, switching to bargaining the second the rage dried up. Don't do this, Daniel. We can fix it. Don't ruin my life over a mistake. That was when my resolve kicked in, hard and cold as the winter storm pounding the siding. I walked to the antique desk, unlocked the drawer, dropped the thick folder on the kitchen counter. Inside, every document, every email, every transfer Lisa thought was a secret. The confrontation wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about evidence, about truth bursting through lies. I looked her straight in the eyes. I didn't ruin your life, Lisa. You did. Now you have to live with it, and so does Mark. Her knees sagged. I almost felt sorry. Almost. But I was done being the scapegoat, the afterthought, her silent savior. As she crumpled into a kitchen chair, sobbing into her hands, I let myself feel the pain one last time, and then, brick by bit of brick, I chose to let it all go. I called my lawyer. I gave her the go-ahead. And as Lisa begged one more time, voice small and trembling, I just turned and walked away, thunder shaking the house behind me, all the way up to the second floor. My phone started buzzing with a call from Mike just as I was halfway up the stairs. Something in his voice set my nerves on edge, no joking. No, you owe me a beer for this one. Just that low, urgent tone like bad news calling through the line. Daniel, sit down, now. I found something. The wires didn't stop with Mark. There's another name, a third account. The blood rushed out of my head so fast I had to grab the banister. My mouth went dry. I choked out, but Mike was already rattling off numbers and dates, his words pounding in my ear, each one worse than the last. I tried to channel my anger at Lisa, but something colder crept under my skin. Mike's screen showed transfers I didn't recognize. Small withdrawals, always the 15th, maybe to avoid flagging, just enough to hurt but not alert the bank. Not just Nevada. Not just Mark Turner. No, these funds bled out to a different state to Idaho. And the name on the other end lasered straight through my gut because it was my own goddamn brother. Jason Webster. I stumbled into the upstairs hallway, the phone hot against my ear. My throat felt like sandpaper. Memories crashed in, the years Jason spent asking for business loans after Dad died, the times he told Lisa all about my weird money rules, his sudden cross-country move after our big falling out. All that time, Lisa had played me longer than I ever realized. She'd been feeding him money behind my back, finger on both sides of the scale. No, Mike, you're wrong. Jason and Lisa barely knew each other. My own words rang false in my ears. But Mike already had the proof. They emailed last week about covering tracks in a new encryption app. I pulled browser logged. Jason coached her through the account hacks. Mark might have been the distraction. Daniel, but your brother ran the playbook. The air was thick, suffocating. Lisa sobbing downstairs suddenly sounded less like heartbreak and more like shame, maybe not just for Mark, but for the second secret, the one too ugly to ever say out loud. Betrayal tightened its grip, sinking claws straight into my chest. All those years I defended her from my family, all those arguments about keeping Jason out of our lives, my mind replayed it, ugly and sharp. Lisa's angry. Why do you hate your brother so much? Her sudden interest in his startups, the emails she swore were spam. Jesus Christ, I breathed, slumping against the wall. My wife and my brother, strings pulled behind my back, both pretending to love me, both bleeding me out. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding like a drum. The word conspiracy flickered in my brain, hot and blinding. How much more had they taken? How many other lies had I swallowed just to keep the peace? Lisa must have sensed the shift. She appeared at the bottom of the stairs, half wild with fear, mascara painting new lines of guilt down her cheeks. She met my eyes and I saw it. She knew I knew. I gripped the railing, hopeless laughter bubbling up, raw and aching. Mark wasn't the only one, was he, Lisa? I said, voice low, carrying across the gulf of our house. Was I ever anything to you but a Mark? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I let the silence swallow us, the world tilting off its axis. My own blood, my own wife. All the rules, all the walls I'd built meant nothing in the face of this nuclear treachery. The game had changed, and I had to decide in that shattered moment just how far I was willing to go for justice. 6 months. It was astonishing how half year could burn through you, hollow you out, and spit you back into a world so rearranged you barely recognize it. The house was quite too big, too memory-haunted, but it was mine again. No Mark, no Lisa, no reason to triple lock my office door or scan the bank app at 3 a.m. praying nothing else had gone missing. It all unraveled in long, slow-motion humiliation for Lisa. She turned on Mark before the DA even needed to flex. One minute, they were plotting cover-ups. The next, Mark was in cuffs on the evening news, his cheap tan and snake oil grin looking so much smaller under courthouse fluorescence. Lisa cut a deal that read like surrender, full restitution, public apology, and exile to some rainy, forgettable Oregon suburb so she could find herself. Her friends vanished. Her inbox became a graveyard. Once, she sent me a single watery email, no apologies, just excuses about feeling trapped, about how loneliness makes monsters of us all. I never replied. Let silence say what pity never could. But it was Jason, the brother I thought I knew, whose betrayal bore its own cruel sting. The moment police traced the ID trail back to him, he folded, babbling about how it was never personal, just business. I watched through glass as they took him away. My jaw clenched, her hard pain rang all the way up my skull. I remembered us as boys, racing bikes until our long streak, trusting each other with secrets under playground trees. Even now, in the dark, his laugh sometimes drummed in my chest, a ghost I couldn't quite exorcise. That ache didn't go away, but it taught me this: love, trust, loyalty, none of it was magic. It was maintenance. And my heartbreak was my own damn problem to fix. In the aftermath, the logistical work was almost a blessing. Court orders restored the accounts. Angela, my lawyer, helped me chase every last dollar down like a bloodhound with a debt to settle. The judge, to everyone's surprise, showed me something close to mercy. No alimony, a clean split, and a warning to Lisa that if another hack transfer showed up anywhere near my name, she'd be trading Oregon drizzle for prison bars. I found a kind of satisfaction in her newfound thrift. No more designer bags, no steakhouse selfies, just grainy Facebook photos and borrowed coats outside diners that didn't even have Yelp reviews. Meanwhile, I built my consulting firm higher and stronger, brick by cautious brick. Late at night, the law still gnawed at me. I'd pace the kitchen, memories rolling in brutal high definition. The day Lisa flashed that diamond bracelet, thinking she'd won. Jason slipping a hand on my shoulder when Dad died, promising, I got you, always. Little flashbacks, sharp as broken glass. But over time, they lost their sting, becoming just lessons, reminders of where carelessness leads. Then, there was Claire. No lightning flash, no grand romantic soundtrack, just two grown people with scar tissue and skepticism talking spreadsheets over bad office coffee. She was honest, sometimes blunt enough to draw blood, but she never played games. She knew my story. I told her everything, even the shameful parts. That first time we laughed together, a full, unguarded sound, I felt something uncoil in my chest, letting her bitch and where bitterness had lived too long. People ask if I'm over it, if I've forgiven. Truth. I'm not sure either word really fits. The betrayal changed me, stripped the naive faith right out of me. But it also built something harder, call it vigilance, call it wisdom, call it damn stubborn survival. I still triple-check things, still lock the office door, but now I guard more than money. I protect myself, the person I almost lost in the middle of that storm. Someday I might send Jason a letter, not forgiveness, but closure. Maybe just so he knows I lived. Maybe to prove to myself that family is what you build, not what you're handed. As for Lisa, the chapter's closed. Let her chase her own ghosts. Now, I stand beneath city lights on my balcony, cool air rushing past my cheeks, half warning, half promise. The world keeps moving, indifferent to my scars. But I get to write the next chapter, sober and watchful, anchored by a hard-won truth: trust isn't a gift, it's a shield. That's my victory rising, not in spite of betrayal, but because of it. Because survival isn't about getting even. It's about building a life nobody else can steal. Some nights, I stand alone on that balcony, tracing the city lights like scar tissue across the dark. Everything I thought I knew about loyalty, about marriage, about family got torched, right down to the foundation. But nobody gets to steal the blueprint for who I'll become. I learned that trust isn't a gift you hand out, it's armor you forge, layer by layer, from your own pain and vigilance. I don't let anyone too close now without seeing who they really are. No more illusions, no more wishful thinking. Maybe that's cynicism, or maybe it's survival. I'm not the man I was before all this, but honestly, I'd never go back. If betrayal taught me anything, it's that your peace is yours to defend. I've rebuilt different, a little scarred, but stronger. And whenever I wonder why it all had to burn, I remember only in the ashes can you decide what's worth saving. That's how I know I finally come home to myself.